So thanks everyone for coming out today. I'm Andrew, Newtown Connections, if you guys all know me already. This is my good friend Tim Moore. He is the CEO of Diamond View Studios. And I appreciate Tim coming out today, talking to us about making dreams a reality, entrepreneurship. And hopefully you guys have some good Q&A here as well today, just to get some interaction between you and the audience as well.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So first question, Tim, thanks so much for coming out on your Tuesday night and giving up a hour, 2 hours of your time. You're the founder of Diamond View Studios. Tell us, what is Diamond View and how did you get that going?
Yeah, so Diamond View is a video production company. For the past 10 years, that's exactly what we've been doing. We've been creating videos that are emotionally engaging. And in the past year, we really found out that the secret sauce to what we do actually has nothing to do with video at all. We realized that the difference between a good video and a great video is that feeling you get afterwards. And so with that, we've really dove into the craft of storytelling. And so today, Diamond View is really a collective of creative storytellers. And we think that's the heart and soul of what makes a really good, emotionally engaging video.
Perfect. And can you take us back to your childhood and kind of explain how you went from, what you thought you were going to as a kid to where you are today?
Yeah. Well, for me, taking you back all the way when I was born, about 4 days before I was born, my dad passed away. And so my mom became a single mother of me and my sister. And so my early years is really, all the memories I have are around that, watching my mom, being a strong woman figure in the house and kind of growing us up. And when she remarried, that's when we moved to Ocala, and I ended up moving about 9 times before we got here to Tampa. But it wasn't until I was 15 that I ever really got my hands on a video camera. And that experience changed my life. I was at a church at the time here in Tampa, and we went on a missions trip. And so someone put the camera in my hands, and they said, all right, you're going to go out and you're going to capture the memories of the week. And I didn't even know what that meant, and so I got this thing in my hands, and they're like, yeah, just press the button on the back, and the light will turn red, and you'll get some good memories. I'm like, all right. So I went out there, and I'm traveling around, and I realized, man, this thing is powerful. What you capture on camera can completely change someone's life. And so when I took this back, I experienced for the first time seeing someone cry at a video. And I thought, man, this is like nothing I've ever experienced. Not only can this change people's perspectives, it can completely change their decisions, their emotions, everything about them. And so from that day forward, that was about 15, 16 years ago now, I've been pursuing my passion for video. And I'm lucky enough that I get to go to work every day and do that for a living.
So I know probably about 9 months ago we did the Millennial Forum, and you had your story of you were working at your mom's house.
Yeah.
So tell us, like storytelling. Tell us, what is that story of? You had to start out somewhere. You're working in your mom's house. Like what was it like working there to build up to what you've made up to today?
Yeah. So. When I graduated high school, it's the worst economy of the past 60 years. But I didn't know any better, and so a friend of mine had called me and he said, "Hey, I'm starting a business." And I'm like, "What do you mean you're starting a business?" He's like, "Yeah, I went on sunbiz.org and I signed up, and now I have an official business." And so at the end of that phone call, I'm like, and I was really competitive, still am. I was like, you know what? I'm going to start a business. And so I went to the library, I got on the computer, and I started Diamond View. And so first thing I did was I called my stepdad, and I was like, hey Dad, I started a business. And that was his response. He said, what do you mean you started a business? I was like, yeah, I'd signed up online, I got the name. He's like, and I told him it's a video production business. He goes, well, you don't have a video camera or a computer.
Yeah.
That's like a bakery with no ovens or a gym with no exercise equipment. You don't have the one thing you need to do the thing you're delivering. And so I thought about it for a minute. I was like, yeah, I don't, but I did have one thing, and that was the dream. I had the dream that one day I could build this into something. And so I think that was something I learned early on. I was working out of my house at the time for the first 2 years. Didn't have a camera, had the dream, and started to realize that the dream only gets you so far. The dream's free to everyone, but the hustle, that's sold separately. So the first 2 years, just putting in the hustle, working underneath my bunk bed on the computer, and doing a lot of stuff for free. Just kind of learning as I went, But those first 2 years, I would say, is the most valuable of my entire career because I learned grit, persistence, tenacity, all those intangible ingredients that help build the business from there.
Yeah, so that's a great story. So can you tell us, like, walk us through that steps of you're starting your house, it's just you and your friend, and kind of like what is that journey from being at that point today, from there to today, where, I mean, how many employees do you have today, and like how do you manage all these people today?
Yeah, so we have 23 employees today, and yeah, it started really, I would say the business took off when my roommate at the time, this is the third year in, I moved out of my house, and I had a roommate at this new house. His name was John. He was studying to be a doctor.
Okay.
And so we were doing things on the side, like he would come help shoot events with me at the YMCA or wherever. And after a couple of times, I realized, like, man, this guy is so talented. If we team up together, we can really make something happen. So after about 6 months of doing that, I had lunch with him, and I said, hey, John, I think we could, as a team, really grow this thing. And so we left lunch, and he's going back to work. And as he gets out the car, I had an envelope for him. And I go, hey, John, you forgot something. And he's wearing scrubs because he's going back to the hospital. He's like, hey, what do you mean I forgot something? I hand him the envelope. I was like, hey, take this up to your boss. So he takes it, and what he realizes that I'd written his letter of resignation. And so on the spot there, he makes the decision whether he's going to leave his career as pursuing a career as a doctor, to coming in the video world. And so that, to me, was a big turning point. It was like a big confidence boost that, hey, not only do I have this dream, but have someone else dreaming it with me. And so John's been my partner now for 8 years, and that was the turning point that went from 1 guy to 2 guys to now 23 guys, is getting passionate people around the same idea. Like, we love storytelling, not because of making the product a video, but of making that connected feeling. Like, I don't think there's anything better than when you're sitting in a room with someone and you know they're inspired too. And so that's what we're chasing every day, is like, how can we create that passion in others?
So that's great. And obviously, right now we're in this huge millennial society we live in today, with all of us here being millennials. So I know we talked about before that millennials have a very short attention span. Mm-hmm. So when you're creating these videos and you're chasing your dreams, how do you really catch people's attention for beyond those 3 or 5 seconds that when I see your videos on Facebook, YouTube, wherever, how do you capture those people's attention to, like, follow what you're up to?
Yeah. There's a lot of talk about that today. So Microsoft actually did a study. They said that millennials have less than half the attention span of a goldfish, which is like 8 seconds. Yeah. So they're saying we have a 4 to 5 second attention span. But if you dig in deeper to that, what you'll actually find is attention span isn't, it's a biological metric. It's the amount of time you can concentrate on something. So it's not that people have a shorter and shorter attention span. What's shrinking actually is the interest span. And so as we create videos, what we're trying to figure out is, what are people actually interested in? Because as you're scrolling through your Facebook feed and you look at a video, 2 to 3 seconds in, you know if it's something you're interested in or if you don't like it.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're really targeting, is like, what are people actually caring and passionate about these days? And I feel like if you find that, that's the secret sauce to any video.
Perfect. So as entrepreneurs, like, we all face challenges and adversity. So can you tell us what stories that have you really faced that have driven you to be successful in, owning a company with 23 people, from, where you've been to where you are today, and like, how have you overcome some of these adversities?
There's challenges all along the way. I think the biggest one for me was just sticking it out when times get tough. Like in the creative world, there's a lot of revisions in the process. So you might think you hit a home run and the client sees it and they're like, you know what, I think we need to redo this. So you come across that a lot, where you just got to put in the extra hours and get past it. I think the big turning point for me was one project that we did. It was out of Miami. We were working here in Tampa, and we had done the edit a number of times over, and the client finally said, hey, I love this. It's great. And this was like at 5 o'clock. So like, all right, we're going to go home at a normal time, and we got the thumbs up. But I look at my partner, John, and I'm like, you know what? How do you feel about this? And he's like, I don't know, man. I don't know if it's the best it can be. And I kind of felt the same way. I'm like, I think this can be better. And so we ended up staying there till about 4 o'clock that next morning. And I remember that was the night where I really had the epiphany on the business. And that was as we're leaving work, we're on Florida Avenue, and it's like the major vein that goes into Tampa.
Yeah.
So as we go out, there's a stoplight, and John makes it through it, and I'm sitting there at it. And at 4 a.m. on a Thursday, there's nobody at this stoplight. And so I'm thinking like, all right, I'm probably just going to blow through this. Like, I'm not going to sit here at this light. But I look in my side view mirror to see who's behind me, and I realize there's nobody on the street. And this thing stretches about 8 miles into the city. So I can see 8 miles down, there's nobody. And thousands of business literally line this street. And so I'm a little bit delusional because we had stayed up till about 3, 4 a.m. the past 3 or 4 nights. And so I get out the car and I realize there's nobody working like we're working because they don't want it like we want it.
Yeah.
And that was the thing, is like, you had to put in the late nights and struggles and revise the video 1,000 times till you're happy with it and the client's happy with it. But once you overcome that hurdle and realize that that's actually your competitive advantage, that you're going to work harder than anyone else, I think to me that was like a big moment in my life.
That's great. So what is one takeaway when these people leave here today that you want them to walk away with and say, you know what, if they're going to go chase their dreams, make things happen as well, have the hustle, have the passion, have the purpose, what's something that you want them to walk away with from today's talk?
Well, I think you got really 2 things to do in life. You have, 1, figure out what your passion is. So many people don't do that. They go to the end of their life and they never figured out their passion. And then 2, spend the rest of your life following that. So it's like a really easy equation, and it's so hard to actually do. I was lucky. When I was 15, I found my passion. And then now I'm in that pursuit. But I think if you can walk away tonight and you can say, all right, I'm going to do my homework. I'm going to write the 20-page essay of me and everything that I love in my life, and I am going to figure out my passion and then spend every waking moment following that, I think you'll live such a fulfilled life. And so many people delay in doing what they love now on the bet that they'll be able to afford to do it later.
Yep.
And I know your story coming from being an accountant and then saying like, you know what, I'm hanging up this hat and I'm going to pursue what I love, and how well that's worked for you. I think people will be even more successful if they pursue what they love than if they do a job that's just going to make the means work.
Yeah, no, that's a true story. Like a lot of people know my story already. I was a CPA for 10 plus years. I left that to start a social club, which obviously has nothing to do with accounting. But that's the whole thing I like to tell people is, if you want to chase your dreams, you got to take a risk.
Yeah.
And again, I could work the CPA job. I could have good money, do what I want to do, but there's no sense of fulfillment. Mm-hmm. And I think what you just said there of when you work that job, it's your passion, it's your purpose. You have that sense of fulfillment. Like I would say right now I'm still building a company. I may not make as much money as I used to, but I have a sense of fulfillment that at least I'm doing something that makes me feel whole.
Yeah.
And my hope for you guys out there is that, today, tomorrow, like Tim said, it takes a while to figure out what is your passion, what is your purpose. Why? I always like to ask, why are you here? Mm-hmm. You guys made the choice today. Like I've told other people before that you've given up your Tuesday as well. I appreciate you guys being here, giving up your Tuesday to spend with us, and that you made that choice of, I'm going to hear what Tim has to say today, and hopefully that impacts your guys' life as well, because you guys could be, it's 70 degrees out, sunny, you guys could be doing anything else, and you chose to be here today. I don't believe it's not by coincidence. Like you guys made that choice here, and so hopefully today you guys leave here and figure out. Again, it's easier said than done to figure out what is your passion, what's your purpose. But if you get in the right mindset of like, why are you here, then hopefully you guys can like lead your dreams to make a reality as well. Mm-hmm. So in terms of let's see here, in terms of outside of work, you have a family, you have a wife, you have kids. We're all super busy. What is the secret sauce to balancing between work and life, family, work, partners, everything?
That's a good question. I think for me, really, it's not about balance at all. Like I think it's about counterbalance.
Okay.
If you try to set yourself up where you have a perfectly balanced life, you're setting yourself up for failure. So for me, it's putting 100% in what you're doing, and then knowing in any of the areas that you've lacked in, you come back and fill in those gaps. So I try to spend as much time on the weekends with the family as possible, and when I'm home, I'm 100% there. But when I'm at work, I'm passionate and I'm there at work. So that's really how I approach having a balanced life is counterbalancing. Really not trying to fulfill everything and every aspect in one day, but being able to be 100% in the moment each day.
And then one of the questions I always like to ask is, when you're looking back at your life, you're 85 years old, you're a grandfather, great-grandpa, whatever. How do you want to be remembered? What legacy do you want your kids and grandkids to remember you as?
Well, in business and life and everything, I really think my aim is to inspire. I know that I feel my best when I'm inspired, and that's the spectrum of emotions from depression to euphoria. There's this little section called inspiration that when you're in that zone, you know what it feels like, and it's so empowering that you do things you couldn't elsewise. And so I'd like my legacy to be that not only empower people, but inspire them to do great things.
Okay. And I remember back at the Millennial Forum, we talked about that one of my favorite quotes from you back then was, you're 1 degree of separation from someone who can change the trajectory of your life.
Yeah.
So can you explain to these guys here of what exactly does that mean that you're 1 degree living here in Tampa or St. Pete in Tampa Bay? Like, what does that mean being 1 degree away from someone who can change your life?
I think that a lot of people look at net worth and they don't realize that the most valuable thing you have is your network. And so I found out in life that, man, you are literally bumping shoulders with people that will change the complete future of what you're doing. And if you look at it too, like the younger you are, the more influence you have on what your future is going to be. Like if you look at NASA, they spend months getting the trajectory perfect of the spaceship. And the reason why is if you're 1 inch off on the launch pad, you're 100 miles off in space. And so as you're going throughout and you're networking with people, when you're early in your career, to bump into somebody that you don't even know how they're going to influence you, that could be the person that completely changes what your career is, what your opportunities are in the future. And so I take that today, I still take that as a major opportunity that anyone I meet, I don't take for granted. They may be the one that completely changes my life.
Yeah, that's a lot of people here today I've met through either Newtown Connections. I met you through Caesar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I met Tim through Caesar. He's my PR guy, and that was probably a year and a half ago.
And it's an interesting story with Caesar. So when I went to the University of South Florida, I was running for student body president, and there were 6 candidates in the race. Caesar was one of them. When I met Caesar, I first didn't like him. It was competition, Yeah. And me and John were like, all right, this Caesar guy, he's freaking good. He's a good talker, and he knew how to win people over. And man, I was like, I wasn't sure how I felt about him. And then the more and more I talked to him, I realized, man, I like this guy too. He ended up winning the race. We ended up losing the race. We lost miserably. I think we had like 200 votes. Yeah. It was like 47,000 people that go to this school. And so Caesar won by a landslide. And I remember thinking, walking away from that, like, okay, that's probably the last time we'll talk with Caesar. Caesar has been such a good friend now for 6 years. At every place he's worked at, he's brought us on board to be his video partner there. And who would have thought that someone that we initially were kind of going against would be such a big brand ambassador for us moving forward. So I think that's anyone in life, even if you're initially in a conflict with them or the relationship's not right, realizing that that person has so much impact on your future can really change the mindset of all your relationships.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great point. And then a couple more questions, and we'll open up to Q&A here. Mm. So, other question here is, if you could go back in your past and change anything in your past, what would it be?
Oh wow, that's a good one. Man, I think just learning earlier. Well, like I said, once I found out that was my passion, my life really changed from there. And so what I see nowadays is with the internet, kids that are learning at such a young age, all the things they love. Like you might find out what you love at 9 or 10 or 11, and if you find your passion then, I'd say pursue it then. So many people get talked out of being an astronaut or talked out of being what they love because it's not practical. And I think the world we live in today, everything is practical. We just sent a rocket to Mars. And you think about that. There might be a massive market for astronauts in the next 30, 40 years. Like whatever it is that you love, figure that out and pursue it 100%. If I were to go back in time, I'd only wish that I'd found my passion earlier, because my life's never been the same since I found it.
And then to that point, like, what do you have two sons, right?
Yeah.
And how old are your sons?
4 and 2.
4 and 2.
Yeah.
So tell us, like, what are you teaching your sons at 4 and 2? Like, all this stuff we're talking about today, like, are you just general stuff? I don't have any kids, but like, what are you teaching your kids right now?
A lot of what we talk about is self-affirmation. You know,
Okay.
when you say I can't, you're telling yourself, you're coming in agreement with that doubt. And the biggest thing that trips people up along the way is fear, uncertainty, and doubt. When you put that in your mind, it's so hard to take out. So we always tell them to talk positive. You know, they can do anything they want as long as they try. You know, I think that's the key that we've tried to show both of our kids. They love the half pipe. They're avid skateboarders, you know, at a young age, and we go on the four-wheeler all the time. And so a lot of things that I would say a lot of traditional parents keep their kids away from until they grow up, we're trying to get them involved with early on so they don't have that fear. You know, that they can live kind of wide open in their world. So I think that's one thing. It's just affirming that you can do anything.
Okay. And well, last question here. So what is the future of Tim Moore, Diamond View? Like, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, like what is your ultimate plan? What do you want to do to take over the world?
Yeah. Our vision is really simple. We aim to inspire. So I really want to inspire everyone we come in contact with. We want to make videos that are worth watching, pursue causes that are worth pursuing. And I think the goal is that people would experience what we produce and their life would be changed from it. To give you an example, we just did an awareness video about PTSD. And when we learned about the effects that people are going through on a day-to-day life that have this disorder, you know, it was a serious, like, turning point just a couple of days ago of how I thought of PTSD. And so what we want to do is bring that awareness in everything in life, you know. And then once people are aware of the problems that we deal with, inspire them to help change it.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Tim, for joining us today.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, so we'll be around here if you guys want to talk to Tim, do some networking, have some pizza, please. And we've got this place about 7:30, so.
Awesome.
I appreciate it,
Thank
Tim.
you very much, Andrew.
Yeah, you got it.